I was shocked, raped, hung by the ceiling, tied up to the headboard and footboard of the bed. He starts off by saying, "Hello, bitch."
Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are obviously here against your will. I won't have any qualms at all about your throat.
On a sweltering July evening in 1996, the quiet town of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, became the setting for a chilling series of events. 22-year-old Kelly Garrett, seeking refuge from a domestic dispute, made her way to a local pool hall. Little did she know, this decision would plunge her into a nightmare beyond her imagination. She met her friend Jessie Ray, planning to unwind over drinks and billiards. As the night progressed, Kelly began to feel unusually disoriented. Her instincts screamed danger, but it was already too late. In a twist of betrayal, Jessie had allegedly spiked Kelly's drink. As she stumbled into the parking lot, an unknown assailant struck. Kelly's world went black. Hours later, she regained consciousness in horrifying circumstances. Chained, collared, and trapped in a foul-smelling space, Kelly found herself at the mercy of her captors. The situation was about to take an even darker turn. Two figures entered her prison, a man with a chilling smile and Jessie herself. The man, later identified as David Parker Ray, would come to be known by a sinister moniker, the Toy Box Killer. In a shocking revelation, Jessie was not just an accomplice, but Ray's daughter. The horror that began that July night was far from over. For the next 48 hours, Kelly endured unimaginable torment at the hands of David Parker Ray and his daughter Jessie. Their lair, cynically dubbed the Toy Box, became a chamber of horrors where Kelly was subjected to brutal assaults and forced intoxication. The perpetrators, seemingly detached from human empathy, recorded their vile act. As the third day dawned, they discarded Kelly on a desolate roadside, leaving her dead. Some accounts suggest Ray inflicted a final grievous wound before abandoning her, while others describe a callous disposal from their vehicle. Miraculously, Kelly survived. She managed to find her way back to civilization, but her ordeal was far from over. In a cruel twist of fate, her husband dismissed her harrowing account as a fabrication, suspecting infidelity instead of the traumatic truth. Their marriage crumbled under the weight of disbelief and misunderstanding. Seeking a fresh start, Kelly relocated to Colorado. For 3 long years, she kept her traumatic experience to herself, unaware that Ray, Jessie, and 2 other accomplices continued their reign of terror. During this time, an unknown number of victims fell prey to their sadistic rituals, each enduring similar ordeals in the infamous Toy Box. To understand the origins of David Parker Ray's heinous crimes, we must delve into his troubled past. Ray was born in Belen, New Mexico, in November 1939. Ray experienced instability and abuse as a child, which may have contributed to his later descent into depravity. Ray's early years were overshadowed by an alcoholic father who subjected his children to abuse. When Ray was 10, his father abandoned the family, leaving Ray and his sister Peggy in the care of their grandfather. While their grandfather aimed to provide structure, his methods were harsh. By modern standards, the children faced severe discipline and were required to perform grueling work on the family ranch. At school, young David became a target for bullies. His grandfather's insistence on conservative dress made him stand out among his peers. A turning point came on Ray's 13th birthday, when he received a motor scooter from his grandparents. This became more than just a mode of transportation for young David. It ignited a passion for mechanics, a skill that would later play a crucial role in his dark endeavors. As he mastered the intricacies of the machine, his social status began to shift. The same peers who once mocked him now sought his expertise to repair their own bikes. However, this period of positive change was overshadowed by the rare but damaging visits from his father. These encounters exposed the young David to violent pornography, warping his understanding of intimacy and planting seeds of future depravity. The impact of this exposure soon manifested in disturbing ways. David's sister Peggy discovered his unsettling drawings, graphic depictions of bondage and torture that hinted at a growing obsession with sexual violence. As David entered adulthood, he seemed to find direction in the military, serving as an army mechanic. However, his discharge in 1963 marked the beginning of a tumultuous period in his personal life. 2 failed marriages came and went before he met Glenda Burdine, an 18-year-old single mother. This union brought Ray a stepdaughter, and soon after, his only biological child, Glenda Jean Ray, was known as Jessie. Jessie would grow to become a pivotal figure in Ray's life. She earned her father's ardent devotion despite being fierce and independent. According according to true crime author John Glatt. Despite his newfound family life, Ray's inner turmoil persisted. When Jessie was just months old, he abruptly left, embarking on a period of wandering through New Mexico and Arizona. Adopting a hippie lifestyle, he survived on odd jobs and his mechanical skills. The following years saw Ray attempting to stabilize his life. He secured a position as an aircraft mechanic and even spent time teaching aviation students. Throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, the family moved between Texas and Albuquerque, but Ray's third marriage eventually collapsed. His ex-wife remained in Albuquerque with their children while Ray took on work as a traveling mechanic, further distancing himself from his family. In 1983, Ray's life took another turn. He found success as a mechanic and manager at Canal Motors in Phoenix, Arizona. His expertise earned him the respect of the owners, Bill Bowers and Bill Stone, and their business flourished. With his newfound financial stability, Ray leased land in Elephant Butte, New Mexico, setting up residence in a double-wide trailer. It was here that Ray began a sinister side business, designing and selling bondage equipment in secret. This clandestine operation would eventually evolve into something far more disturbing. The exact timeline of when Ray began his spree of kidnapping, raping, and torturing women remains unclear. The extent of Ray's crimes remained hidden until a fateful encounter in 1999 with a woman named Cynthia Vigil. Her miraculous escape would ultimately lead to the unraveling of the Toy Box Killer's reign of terror. On a chilly March night in Albuquerque, Cynthia, working as a prostitute, accepted an offer from Ray for what she thought would be a routine transaction. Upon entering his van, she encountered Cindy Hendy, Ray's girlfriend and accomplice. Hendy, a fugitive from Seattle with a criminal history, had abandoned her family to join Ray in his twisted pursuits. The situation quickly turned sinister. Ray, posing as a police officer, claimed to be arresting Cynthia for prostitution. In reality, this was the beginning of a horrifying abduction. Bound and gagged by Hendy, Cynthia endured a 4-hour drive to Ray's lair, known as the Toy Box. Once there, Cynthia faced a nightmarish scenario. Chained to a bedpost, she was forced to listen to a disturbing 20-minute recording detailing the torments that awaited her. This audio, eerily reminiscent of an instructional tape, outlined the cruel fate of becoming Ray's captive. The horrors described in the recording were beyond imagination, promising a life of unthinkable abuse and degradation. As Cynthia listened, the true extent of her peril became clear. She had fallen into the hands of a sadistic killer whose crimes had gone undetected for years. The recording was just the prelude to a horrific ordeal. Cynthia endured days of unimaginable abuse at the hands of Ray and Hendy. Their acts of cruelty ranged from severe physical violence to psychological torment, all designed to break Cynthia's spirit and will. Ray and Hendy subjected Cynthia to brutal beatings, sexual assaults, and threats with various weapons. They employed a twisted arsenal of torture devices, each more terrifying than the last. Throughout the ordeal, they made it clear that their goal was not just to inflict pain, but to utterly dehumanize their victim. At one point, Ray gestured towards another room, implying it contained even more severe instruments of torture. Cynthia, fearing this room might be where previous victims had met their end, knew she had to avoid it at all costs to survive. Shockingly, Ray and Hendy maintained seemingly normal lives outside their hidden chamber of horrors. They treated their sadistic activities as a perverse hobby, often returning to torment their captives after their regular work days. On March 22nd, 1999, Cynthia's third day of captivity, an opportunity for escape presented itself. Ray left for work, leaving Hendy to guard their prisoner. In a moment of carelessness, Hendy left a set of keys within Cynthia's reach. Seizing this chance, Cynthia managed to grasp the keys and unlock her restraints. With her newfound freedom, Cynthia's first instinct was to call for help. She frantically dialed 911, but Hendy's return cut the call short. A violent struggle ensued, with Hendy striking Cynthia with a lamp. The impact knocked Cynthia down, scattering nearby items. Among them was the very ice pick used in her torture. Seizing this makeshift weapon, Cynthia managed to fend off Hendy long enough to make a break for the door. Naked and still partially chained, Cynthia fled into the street. Blood from her fresh head wound streamed down her face as she ran. Shockingly, 2 passing cars ignored her desperate situation. Cynthia pressed on, driven by sheer survival instinct, knowing that without help she might perish in the unforgiving desert. In a stroke of fortune, Cynthia stumbled upon a nearby trailer park. She burst into one of the homes, startling its occupant with her hysterical pleas for help. The homeowner, witnessing Cynthia's dire state, immediately called 911. As the police arrived, Cynthia felt a wave of relief wash over her. Through her shock and trauma, she could only repeat, "I'm alive. alive! I'm alive!" Once she regained some composure, Cynthia recounted her horrifying experience to the authorities, directing them to Ray's trailer. To Cynthia's surprise, law enforcement was already at Ray's property. Unbeknownst to her, her initial 911 call had not been entirely in vain. The abrupt end to Cynthia's 911 call had alerted the authorities, prompting them to investigate Ray's property. As Cynthia recovered in the hospital, her memories of the ordeal gradually returned. Her detailed account to investigators set the stage for a thorough search of Ray's premises, an experience that would deeply disturb even seasoned law enforcement officers. The search of the infamous toy box revealed a house of horrors that corroborated Cynthia's harrowing tale. Police discovered physical evidence, including the broken lamp, the ice pick, Cynthia's clothes, and Ray's counterfeit police badge. They also uncovered more sinister items, a disturbing to-do list for torture, and the audio tape used to terrorize victims. The investigation led to a second room that Cynthia had been threatened with during her captivity. This 15 by 25 foot space was a nightmare come true, with walls lined with an array of sexual torture devices. Crude sketches detailing Ray's intended acts of cruelty were found alongside a collection of surgical tools designed for maximum suffering. The search yielded an extensive inventory of implements of torture, sex toys, whips, syringes, restraints, and homemade electrical devices. Perhaps the most chilling discovery was a detailed manual on manipulating and controlling sex slaves. This document revealed Ray's calculated approach to psychological torture, highlighting his preference for describing his intended acts in excruciating detail to his victims. Ray's psychological tactics were revealed to be methodical and cruel. His approach involved alternating between extreme cruelty and unexpected kindness, a strategy designed to keep his victims perpetually off balance and vulnerable. The investigation took an even darker turn with the discovery of a home video. This footage showed Ray committing horrific acts against another young woman, identifiable by a distinctive tattoo. This visual evidence further cemented the case against Ray and his accomplices. As news of the toy box killer spread through media channels, it inadvertently led to the emergence of another victim. Angelica Montano, recognizing similarities in Cynthia's publicized story, found the courage to come forward with her own ordeal. Angelica recounted a chilling experience of betrayal and brutality. What began as a mundane visit to Ray's trailer for cake mix quickly descended into a nightmare. Ray, whom she had considered a friend, threatened her with a knife, while Hendy aimed a gun at her. For 4 harrowing days, Angelica endured torture and sexual abuse before being abandoned in the New Mexico desert. Miraculously, a passing police officer found Angelica shortly after her ordeal. Despite her immediate report of the crimes, her account was inexplicably neglected. No follow-up investigation was conducted, leaving Angelica to silently carry the burden of her trauma. The emergence of Angelica's story and Cynthia's escape compelled authorities to intensify their investigation. A crucial piece of evidence was the home video, which could definitively place one of the victims in the toy box. Investigators knew that identifying the tattooed woman in the footage was crucial to building a solid case against Ray. As news of the case spread nationwide, it reached Kelly Garrett's former mother-in-law. She recalled Kelly's mysterious 3-day disappearance and her battered condition upon her return. Initially attributed to drug use, these events now took on a sinister new light. She contacted the police, hoping they could locate Kelly on Mortemont. Authorities eventually traced Kelly to her home in Colorado. The tattoos on her body matched those of the woman in the video, making her a key witness against David Parker Ray. Her testimony had the potential to secure life sentences for Ray and his accomplices. However, high-profile cases often come with unexpected complications. As the trial approached, a new development emerged. Cindy Hendy, Ray's accomplice, decided to turn on him in exchange for a reduced sentence. She provided investigators with shocking information about Ray's disposal methods for human remains. Hendy's testimony included a startling claim about the fate of Bill Bowers, Ray's former business partner from Phoenix. This new information added another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. Hendy's testimony included gruesome details about Ray's alleged disposal methods. She claimed that Ray had dumped bodies in Elephant Butte Lake, with his former partner Bill Bowers supposedly being one of the first victims. According to Hendy, Ray had developed a macabre technique to prevent bodies from resurfacing, involving mutilation to release decomposition gases. Despite these claims, extensive searches of Elephant Butte Lake yielded no human remains. In fact, investigators were unable to recover any physical evidence of murder that could be definitively linked to Ray, adding a layer of complexity to the prosecution's case. case, the state secured another cooperating witness in Dennis Yancey, an alleged accomplice. Yancey provided testimony about the murder of Marie Parker, his ex-girlfriend, in 1997. He recounted a horrifying scenario where Parker was abducted, subjected to days of torture, and ultimately killed. Yancey claimed Ray had instructed him to strangle Parker and dispose of her body. Despite the wealth of evidence, including testimony from 2 accomplices, 3 eyewitnesses, and the discovery of Ray's torture chamber, the case faced unexpected hurdles in court. Judge Neil Mertz, presiding over the trial, seemed to impede the prosecution's efforts at every turn. One significant decision by Judge Mertz was to limit the scope of the trial, preventing the prosecution from trying Ray for crimes against all 3 known victims simultaneously. This ruling complicated the state's strategy and threatened to undermine the full impact of the evidence they had gathered. Ray faced 3 separate trials for Angelica, Cynthia, and Kelly. Judge Mertz, however, made things more difficult by barring early interviews from Cynthia's trial, blocking key FBI testimony, and postponing the trial after Ray's convenient heart attack. Despite this, Mertz kick-started Kelly's trial, the weakest of the 3. Kelly's ordeal happened in 1996, and the judge didn't allow evidence from the 1999 raid. Proving anything without video evidence was nearly impossible. Tragically, Angelica died of pneumonia at just 25, further weakening the case against Ray. With much of the evidence disallowed and a key witness gone, Ray's lawyers pulled every trick to defend him. Kelly bravely testified, recounting her horrific experience and even watching her own torture video in court. The defense tried to discredit her, claiming she was on drugs and questioning her memory. On July 14, 2000, a mistrial was declared after 2 jurors concluded Ray was innocent, believing Kelly might have consented to rough sex. The prosecution immediately retried Ray, but Judge Mertz died before the second trial, causing more delays. In April 2001, a year after Cynthia's escape, Ray was finally convicted on all charges. Despite his conviction, Ray maintained his innocence, claiming the tapes were for entertainment. However, when the prosecution threatened his daughter Jessie, Ray pled guilty to save her, receiving 224 years in prison. Jessie got away with a light sentence, serving only 2 years. Ray never saw the inside of a prison cell. On May 28, 2002, he died of a heart attack while being transferred to Lee County Correctional Facility. Cindy came up for parole in 2017 but was released in 2022 after completing her mandatory probation. Yancey was released in 2011 but violated parole and stayed in prison until 2021. He has kept a low profile since. As for Jessie, Ray's daughter, she barely spent time behind bars. Now 55 years old, she remains somewhere in the United States. Despite her father's notorious legacy, the question lingers: will she continue the family's dark path?